Go ahead.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the confab about having to do it by Zoom. It turns out we could have done it, but we still could have had technological issues. So this is probably the best for a single item agenda, or well, one single review agenda. So welcome. I'm John Burr, the chair at 6:32 to the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board, and we will do roll call. I am here. Helen.
Here.
There we go. Pat.
Here.
Maurice.
Here.
Stan.
Here.
And Lynn just joined us.
Here.
Bingo, we have a full house tonight. Okay, item number 2. I sent out a draft LAR. Michael, did you see any concerns?
Honestly, I have not gone through it.
Okay, all right. Did everybody else get a chance to look through it? Did it seem like a reasonable description of that very lengthy meeting we had last month?
Yes. I thought so too. I would make a recommendation that we approve it as submitted.
Okay.
Helen seconded.
Okay. Roll call. I say aye. Helen.
Aye.
Pat.
Here.
Maurice.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Okay, anything for call to the audience?
Did not receive any, Mr. Chair.
Nothing came in. Okay.
Nothing came in.
We can move on directly to item 4, reviews. Item A, 222, the address changes every time. South Fifth Avenue, SD 0924000098. And this is the actual formal review for park changes, including the bathrooms this time. Removing of the existing stage, the plaza area and games area, restroom renovations for ADA compliance, addition of a central plaza with overhead shade structure, addition of trees, parking lighting, addition of a dog park, and parking improvements. Full review contributing.
I should turn that off. I'm sorry.
Pardon?
That was me, sorry. Enrique came home.
Okay. So we've got 3 people from the design team here. We've got Michael. Valerie, are you with the team as well?
Yes, I'm with Same Associate.
Okay. And Matt, who gets to go first or wants to?
I'll start it off.
Okay. Can you share screen, Michael?
Let me make him. Is it Matt who's starting off?
That's Matt.
Yep.
Let me.
And Valerie's the one that does all the work, just so everybody knows.
Good for you.
So, Matt, I'm making you the co-host.
Okay. Do I have the right screen up?
Yes.
So,
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I am Matt Smith with Arc Studios. We have been hired by the city to come up with plans for Armory Park. Elliot Welch is the project manager with the city. On our team and joining us tonight are Michael and Valerie from Same Associates. As mentioned, this is the formal review for Armory Park. So I think a few of you have seen this about 3 times over. Not much has changed, so I'll go through kind of the high points and then let Michael and Valerie dive in. So on the screen right now is a demo plan. And there's some key items I want to touch on that are being removed, starting with some of the trees and the shrubs. So on the north side along East 12th, we're proposing removing a non-contributing ash, a non-contributing mulberry. Moving down to the center of the site, all the ash that exists within the current plaza is proposed to be removed. Coming down south along East 13th, we're removing an ash by the driveway, and then a larger contributing ash that is in poor health. And then up near the corner of 12th and 5th, we are unfortunately removing one of the saguaros, one of the arms just broke off, and it's in declining health. Those are kind of a high level important plants and trees on site.
Quick question, why did you not list the 3 large cypress that were toppled on this plan?
They're already down, so we're not removing them. They've been
Oh.
removed.
Fair up. Some of the roots are still there, I think.
We'll make sure those are gone.
This is Helen. Are you able to make your screen larger?
Yep. That
Thank
work?
you.
I'll just pan around.
Much better.
So as far as the hardscape elements, we're proposing removing the existing shuffleboards, horseshoes, games court, removing the existing plaza space, and removing the existing stage with overhead structure. The drive entrances into the site with the vehicle barricades will be removed as well. And then up in this area, we are working around the one saguaro that will remain, removing some of the curbs, some of the DG areas, and adding parking budget allows here. Moving on to the plan, I'll start north and work down. In the footprint of the existing games area, we are proposing to add a dog park. The dog park works around an existing underground water line. That water line needs access by Tucson Water. It's been actually kind of a sticking point with this project, so we're proposing the gates all aligned along this water line. I'll go into the details of the fence and the gates further down. Going to the center of the site, we are trying to bring back the historic character and context of the site, moving the stage back to the center, trying to realign some of the crossing paths and bring the focus to the center of the site. In that center of the site, we have about a 50 by 30 plaza area with overhead structure, a small lawn area in front of that, and then connecting back to the existing paths. Going towards the activity center, we are proposing some steps and ramps to get access into the back entry for the center, and that all aligns with a north-south sidewalk for circulation. That sidewalk would be lined with Chinese pistache, trying to mimic some of the historic ash trees along the perimeter of the site.
It appears that walkway has been moved maybe 10, 12 feet to the west from the original proposal we saw in January. Is that to accommodate the new ramps?
It may have been moved just a few feet, but it's more or less stayed in the same location.
Okay.
Some of the constraints we're working around is the existing pole off the corner of the building, and then trying to align as best we can without removing many parking spaces.
Okay.
So the idea is to limit vehicular circulation into the site. This north-south path is about 10 feet wide, so it will accommodate trucks and other access into the stage, but then would have a barricade to limit access any other times. Down where the existing dumpster is, we're proposing moving glass recycling, so all that is concentrated in one area. And then moving around the perimeter of the site, as I mentioned up here, we are proposing staff parking, and this will be only staff parking. And then adding back trees to the perimeter of the site. So over here would be ironwoods around the staff parking, kind of mimic the desert theme with the saguaros and palo verdes that are already here. And then around East 12th, 6th, and 13th, we would be putting back ash to mimic the historical ash. So there's a couple questions to the board with these trees, particularly the cypress that blew down and the ash. Is that the path we should go back down? Is replacing the cypress with cypress, replacing the ash with ash? Is there a more long-term solution? We have concerns with the emerald ash borer eventually getting all ash in Arizona, maybe in the 15 to 20-year time span, but we're looking for a 100-year time span. Are we better off putting oak or something else? Same with the cypress. Are we trying to match what was there, or do we want to start bringing something back in?
Helen's probably best suited to address this, but I've got some comments too. Do you want to go first, Helen?
Sure. I think the problem is twofold. First of all, you're dealing with a situation right now where the cypresses are considered very important to a large number of people. At the same time, I think you have to prepare for succession. And what most parks seem to be doing right now is to interplant. And I think this is an extended discussion. I'm not sure it's appropriate to have right now. But in the context of climate change, I think it would be really important to start thinking about it this way. So if you are planting, I notice that you have the Chinese pistache along the side there. That apparently is something that is predicted to survive for quite a while. Obviously, a pistache is not as large as a cypress or an ash, but in creating this plan, it might be a good idea to think about interplanting so that as the cypresses probably burn out, that there is an alternative there. Now, as I say, this is a very hard conversation to have right now. I'm not sure where you should go with that, but I think it's worth noting that this is not just the problem for Armory Park. It's the problem of every historic park in the country right now. I don't have a solution for you.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. And we had explored the succession plantings and putting them in between the cypress, but it significantly reduced visibility through the park, at least in the early years. And we had pushback from TPD and others reviewing. So
Yeah,
can't always make everybody happy.
I'm not sure there is a good solution for this, Matt. I just think we're sort of at the beginning of looking at these problems, and maybe this isn't the time to try. So
Yeah, we can keep exploring this, and I think I just wanted to kind of open the subject, knowing that just leaving it how it is now might not be the best long-term 50+ year solution.
Yeah. Quick question. The cypress are pretty critical to like the feel of the park historically, and a lot of them are still in pretty good shape, and there's not really any other plant that kind of replicates the size and scale and shape of those at the moment. But the ash could be problematic over time. Would it be ideal to alternate ash and oak or something that's a bit more hardy, so that there would be a variation in height, but a different rhythm around the edges, something like that?
We'd explore that. We could do deciduous and evergreen with that. It's just if we want to keep that character of the park, which is always the same species all around, if that's important.
right.
I think the ash is there because it was a plant that managed to survive to the present day, and so it got filled in a lot. And they were the original plantings, but was no means the predominant tree throughout the last 130 years.
Well, also, I think here's a problem, John, that you're talking about monocultures.
Yeah.
And we have, if you can create the idea of a monoculture without having a monoculture, that of course is a good approach. But I also suspect that right now, in 20 years, we won't have the cypresses. So the solution that most people have been working on is the idea of interplanting. And what that species should be, I think, involves a bit more research, because I don't think anybody's cracked that nut.
Maybe they'll develop a hybrid that's already.
Yeah, I don't know if there, I must say, I don't honestly know, Matt, if there's a hybrid that has been developed at this time. We could ask Steve Grady, who probably has his finger on this more than anybody else.
Yeah, we can table this until the landscape subcommittee.
Are you going there or just PRS?
No, we're doing the landscape subcommittee as well.
Okay, great. They can probably give you better guidance on that.
Okay.
But this looks largely what you proposed before. Tree-wise.
Yeah.
The neighborhood does have one special request all of a sudden that we didn't know about. We've had a lot of prominent people in the neighborhood pass away, and the collective action of the neighborhood suggested planting memorial trees, and that has morphed into, because a public tree would need to be in the right of way or our neighborhood park, if it would be possible to plant another pistache in the south quadrant or something and put a plaque on it that Armory Park neighborhood would take care of, that says Armory Park Neighborhood Memorial Tree.
John, wouldn't you encourage the neighborhood not to plant one tree, but to plant, say, a row of trees?
That would be fine if I wanted to put that concept into the discussion now. The south expanse of lawn near where the camera is the most open and exposed, and it might be nice to have a really large pistache to balance the ones to the north in that area, so that there is a similar large grouping of trees on both sides of the park. But just throwing it out there. It's a request from the neighborhood association.
Are they requesting just trees? Or are they open to a bench or bricks? Or I'm just trying to give the city more options.
There are a lot of plant people and there aren't many bench people in the neighborhood association, so that's a tough call. I can't answer directly, but it's possible it could be some feature that would be recognized as a neighborhood memorial site where people could go for anyone that they have lost in the community.
I have a question, please, Lynn. Is this one tree for everyone that wants to be memorialized, or are individuals paying for and providing trees for specific memorials? Mission Garden has something like that. They charge $1,000 a tree, and the tree gets a plaque in the ground, and then it's that particular tree for that particular person for a long period of time. I'm not sure what you're looking at here.
We wanted something that commemorates those who have been lost in the community of the neighborhood, because it
Sure.
is technically a neighborhood park. And a tree was the collective thought currently, so I don't want to specify one tree or a allee of trees or whatever. I don't think anyone was planning on chipping in and, buying bigger plants for the city of Tucson so that they could get a plaque on it. It's just, it would be nice to have some notice that the neighborhood is supporting replantings in the park. But I really don't want to get hung up on this particular question. I just wanted to throw it out while you're at 75% now. You've got other reviews, but I wanted to throw that out as a concept to think about.
Okay. We'll talk to the city about it and see what thoughts they have.
So,
Okay.
John, I have a question too. I think my question was also related to what Lynn was asking. are these people you're talking about, have they done some contribution, significant contribution to the neighborhood, or we're just talking of anybody who lives in the neighborhood?
There are a lot of the old guard that basically saved this neighborhood in the 70s and established it as an historic zone that are now at the age that they are dying off in droves. And we've had 5 of them this year. And the question has popped up several times. So that's where initiative started. They were important in the neighborhood and its history.
Thank you.
I think before I turn it over to Michael and Valerie, I'll just go through the materials quickly. I don't think these have been presented before. For all the concrete in the park, most of the connecting sidewalks, we're just going to do a standard grade room finish concrete, match more or less what was there. And then for the plaza space, it would have a slightly decorative treatment. It would still be gray concrete, but have an exposed aggregate finish. All the landscape areas would receive this desert gold gravel, would be minus, so it would compact over time and there'll be more flexibility throughout the park. The roof of the shade structure is going to be a V-deck material.
Why did
And
you
then-
choose corrugated is a standard material in the neighborhood, but it's the S curve? Why did you choose the more industrial B profile?
I'll save that one for Michael when they present.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'll stay in my lane on that one.
And on the two kind of angled, well, where the cypress are, where it connects into the circle, will you be in the places you chop it out? Will you be recreating the grid that's in there now, the 4x4 sections?
Correct. The score patterns would match what's there.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And then the fence for the dog park would be similar to what's in the picture right now. It would have a round picket and then have a mid rail with an open area at the top. And this is to try to increase visibility throughout and kind of make the fence disappear as best we can. Tree species, we have ash, ironwood, pistache, Palo Blanco, hackberry, and replacing the cypress.
How did you pick the Palo Blanco for more decorative element?
More decorative, more upright, and we've actually just got feedback from city transportation that they do not want it in the right of way. So these will be just around the building.
Do they have a reasonable lifespan?
They do, but they can be frost sensitive. So they freeze down around 25. But if they're right against the building on the western side, it should be a good microclimate for them. Any other questions?
After the whole presentation, there might be.
Okay. Michael, you're up.
Alrighty, let me make sure I got it. Valerie, I can
Oh,
share
okay. That's good because I don't have the ability to.
it.
Do I need to make you co-host, Michael?
Yeah, please. So good evening, everybody. Appreciate your time. So what we've been tasked with, like we mentioned, we presented you before, is the restroom renovation and the shade pavilion itself. We presented some options last time. I think one of those was sort of preferred, and we've taken that and sort of massaged it, and we have a new concept to present to you today. Get some feedback, and we can also show you what we're doing with the restroom. I know there were some concerns about that last time. So I'll start with the restroom because that's fairly, it's a very contained thing.
We actually didn't see anything. It was just discussed that it would need to be more visible.
Yes, I know. And you were not, John, you were somewhat concerned about what we were doing there. So
I saw the pictures. I wouldn't want to use it, but I understand the need.
Sure. Well, let me share my screen and then we'll cover the restroom quickly first, because again, it is there it is. it's fairly straightforward scope of work, and we want to kind of explain what we're doing. Probably the easiest drawing to understand what this is these two little images that Valerie put together for us. Let me zoom in. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the existing condition. So it is only the north restroom, and I'm assuming everybody knows where the restrooms are and their configuration. Is that correct? More or less?
Yes.
I've never used that one. I assume the restrooms inside will be still accessible.
Yes, we will not be affecting the restrooms inside. And whatever the hours of operation are, we're not affecting any of that. It's only this exterior restroom on the north side of the building. Obviously, it's been very problematic. If I slide over here to our floor plan, this is the sort of existing floor plan. These are not accessible. They do not have an accessible stall. They do not have an accessible door. And in addition to that, I think we all know the fundamental issues that we have when these types of public parks, public restrooms are private like this, they do cause problems. In terms of people using drugs and all sorts of things, barricading themselves inside the room. So the parks has gone to a much more open model for the restrooms, and I understand your point, John. You would not use them, but we have to find a balance between sort of visibility and public safety and then privacy and having restrooms. And that's kind of what we're trying to find. And that's why we want some feedback today in terms of what we're proposing to do here. So let me slide back over to this image again. So, today we have this door with a couple of gates on it. You go into those two restrooms. They have another door that you go through to get into the restrooms. And then there are the stall doors inside there. We're proposing to drastically simplify all of this to basically 2 stalls. And this is similar to what we're doing with some other restrooms around the city as part of these parks projects. Now, obviously, they're not all historic resources. So there are different considerations for those other sites. But what we're looking at, so what this ends up looking like is something closer to this image on the bottom. We want to open up the doors quite a bit. You will see into the space. There will be 2 stalls, and we have not quite picked a color. The material for the stall partitions would be some kind of a metal, something durable. There would be visibility so that somebody could see if there are people in there in terms of being able to see their feet. The police would be able to monitor the space. And then a request on our 75% review was to consider the addition of some roll down shutters or gates or some kind of way to lock this, because currently we're showing it as being open 24/7, which is the original direction we got. We are looking at some roll up gates that would sort of roll up into the ceiling cavity and disappear. We could also do something more like what's there now, have some swing gates on there, but those tend to get damaged. But certainly willing to talk about that. If we look at the plan view of it, that's this drawing here. Let me slide back for a second to this. So this drawing is the existing conditions. We have the one gate that we're showing here where the 14 is. And then we have the 2 doors here and here that go into the men's and women's stalls. And then there are 2 fixtures on each side and 2 sinks. We're going to reduce that to 2 fixtures. So there will be a toilet, basically 2 toilets within 2 stalls. And then there will be a common sink that will be sort of in the open area. The portion of the wall here, and basically, I'm going to sketch this in kind of here and here, would be removed so that we create a much more open and visible space from the street. And then, as I was saying, we could either include some kind of a gate system or a sort of roll down shutter that would come down from above to secure the space. And we're still moving through that investigation. So, I mean, that's really, as far as the restroom, that's kind of where we are today. And just to being as transparent as we can, we know there are public safety concerns with these facilities, but at the same time, we know families want safe restroom facilities they can use when they're visiting the park. So we're certainly open to comment. I'd like to do we want to do comments on this and then talk about the pavilion?
I just wanted to say that the plans that were presented to us show a completely different configuration.
Right. This has been updated.
A central wall and 2 side stalls.
Yes. We've
One
updated this
sink in the
significantly.
center, 2 stalls off to the side, and the stall height appears to be you could stand on the toilet and hide. And the framing plans shows that it's a wood wall divider, but the illustration and elevations that are presented in our design package show it as being concrete block. So do we just give you guidance instead of approving it and let you do what you need to do? Or how do we handle that since it differs so much from the design package we have to review?
We will send this to you. This is the current design proposal. We've added this plumbing chase and storage room because we need this space for basically the plumbing fixtures and the flush valves. All of the mechanical parts of the plumbing are usually for these park structures are in some kind of a chase so that they're protected. So that's why we created this chase and redesigned the restroom in the configuration that you're seeing on screen now. So this is our current proposal. So if, I guess this is the proposal we would like comment on tonight.
Okay, so what we need to comment on, the north door is moved going from 14 feet down to 11 now.
No, John.
Yeah.
The board should be commenting on this plan. When they came to you the first time, that was a courtesy review, and they got comments from you and feedback. Based on that,
But you posted a design package that shows a completely different configuration that we have all studied prior to this meeting. So we can't approve it as plans presented. We have to approve it as plans presented during the meeting, not the plans in the design package.
okay, that's what you're saying then, that's correct.
And our purview is the exterior, so we are now looking at reduced exterior openings from those presented in the design package. I think it's now 6'4" and it was 8 in the package we saw.
Yes, we have reduced that to, I can explain that if you'd like me to, or
it's fine.
Okay.
Smaller is better in my mind, but we just have to note it because it differs from the package we reviewed.
Yes, it's also likely. So the request for the gates came as part of our 75% review with the city. If we do implement the gates, it will be likely that this 11-foot dimension will also decrease to meet a standard or rolling shutter dimension. So I would like to mention that, but I would like feedback on the gate, whether it's a swinging gate or a shutter, like a overhead shutter.
Hi, this is Helen.
Yes.
I think overhead shutter makes a lot more sense in terms of lack of vandalism. It's probably easier to handle. I have a question that it's so off the chart, I'm almost hesitant to add this, but one of the things that I noticed, I was in Oaxaca in Mexico last week, and I noticed that they have started putting the sinks and washing facilities outside rather than contained in the actual restroom. And so I'm wondering, is that something that's been considered here? Would it make sense?
So one issue with that, because of the way that our plumbing code works here, is that you cannot have rainwater enter a sanitary drain. Okay. So if we were to place the sink outside, it would still have to be covered to prevent it from getting rainwater in it. Sure. And I guess, Helen, what would be the advantage, do you think, of moving this sink sort of out outside of the actual space of the restroom?
Well, it seemed to be more a question that people could use the sink without actually going into the restroom. Mm-hmm. And I don't, I'm really sorry I even brought this up. But
okay, no, I mean, I think if we're trying to sort of accommodate these safety concerns and then also have a sort of minimum impact on the building, I think, keeping everything within the footprint of the restroom makes some sense. But, sure. But we're certainly open to other ideas. I'm not discounting it. You're
still going to have to hire Sanolets for events because you've gone from 6 to 3 fixtures.
Oh, we've got, yeah. essentially.
I have a question or a comment. I think that the rolling gates or closing gates, I agree with Helen, and I prefer the gates that roll down. I think
Okay.
they are an absolute necessity. I live a block away from Santa Rita Park,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I can see someone turning that water on, and it runs all night long. I can see people camping out there,
Mhm.
which is why I really feel that needs to be secured.
Okay.
Anybody else on the bathroom?
Yeah, I got a couple questions, or I mean, issues. My concerns have been addressed previously, so there's nothing that I can really add. I would say that I think the sink should be where it's at. I don't think it should be on the outside. And I also think that the roll-ups, which I would prefer and recommend, would be certainly avoided, not be placed on the exterior.
No. Of course not. Yeah. They would be in the ceiling. They would be concealed in the ceiling space.
All right, good. Then as long as they're not exposed on the outside at
Yeah,
all.
they would. I know exactly what you're talking about. That gigantic box is not
Right.
what we want on the side of the building.
Okay,
So we're on the same page.
that's it. I don't have anything else.
All right. Thank you, Stan.
Sorry to hang you up.
I do have a question. I concur with the rolling gates. I think this is a good idea. On the inside of the building is even a better idea. I do have some concern to the reduced number of stalls. We're coming in from 4 stalls with 2 wash sinks to 2 stalls. Now, I've seen the park with crowds big enough so that with the existing bathrooms, there's a line to get to the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're cutting it down, by 50%. Okay, I don't know that this is really the way to go here. Okay,
Well, sorry, go.
I mean, yeah, there's obviously enough room for for stalls, even if you have an open concept to make it more safety friendly. But it seems to me that cutting down the number of stalls by 50% is not the way to go here. And again, like I said, it's I've seen crowds at time where with kids and full whole families waiting online. I can see that double up, because there's only 50% of the original number of stalls. So I don't know that's the way to go.
So I would just suggest that on the day-to-day use, that 2 stalls would be more than adequate. That when there are events, I would agree with you, 2 stalls is not adequate, but neither is 4, frankly. And what should happen and does happen is that the event, whoever's having an event would bring in, porta-johns or whatever it takes to accommodate that specific event. So if we have, 500 or 1,000 people there, that's a very different situation than if it's just a typical, Tuesday afternoon in the park. But I mean, your comments, we will certainly take it back to the city and have a further conversation about the number of fixtures.
Got the space you've got.
Okay.
Modify the building.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You have the space you have unless you modify the building.
Correct, and we did not want to modify the building. We were trying very hard just to stay within the envelope and not take any actual program space away from the building itself, the interior of the senior center. Those were 2 of our goals, was to try to stay within what we have, make them accessible, and make them safe.
And the interior restrooms are available during daytime hours.
Correct.
Okay, onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards. All right. So we did present the pavilion before. And so let's show you where we're at. Single page view. That didn't do what I wanted. There we go. All right. We'll pop over here. So this is just a little sheet of what we showed last time. I know, Helen, you were not part of that meeting. I believe you missed that meeting. So we showed basically, 4 concepts. I'll zoom in on these and I'm going to do just 30 seconds on each. I don't want to go through these again, and then we will show you what we're proposing today, and we want feedback on this because we're actively still designing this space. And I think it's a very important space for the park and the neighborhood. So we are taking this very seriously. We had, a couple of schemes. We had sort of a shell concept. We talked to some fabricators of these kinds of dome structures, and this is simply not affordable within the money that was put into this budget in the bond. So we've moved away from this kind of shell dome concept.
Did that get a plans review? Because we didn't see that. We saw the 3 others.
Correct. You never saw the shell. You are correct. This came in after that.
Okay. But it's on the table anyway.
It's off the table anyway. It's very cool. It could be a very cool thing.
Yeah, I
It's
like
not
it.
affordable. I know. Well, I did this coming out of our meeting. I just remember there's a lot of discussion about that form, and we've come up with a kind of hybrid, I think. And I just want to get some feedback. I'll walk through what we're doing and explain why I think it's starting to pull these pieces together, but obviously we want feedback on that. We had more of this, sort of a double cantilever shade structure as another option. This, I know in the meeting with you, was felt this was maybe a little too either like, gas station awning or, just maybe a little too mid-century. This was an idea, about having more of a tectonic structure. So a very sort of like, some trusses with a cantilever. There would be some screens that could hang down. This might be a reflective material. We talked about this could almost start to mirror the surrounding environment and maybe disappear a little bit. So this was more of a, it was more of a concept that was trying to make the pavilion do several things and also play with its materiality from an architectural standpoint. So this was a little more complex from a design standpoint. And I think generally everybody felt this was just too busy for what we're trying to accomplish here. And then this was another variation on the gas station, the gas station canopy. I think there was a general agreement this would probably be acceptable, but it's not terribly exciting or necessarily fits within the park and the geometry of the park that well. So we also showed this idea, which was this idea of a tent, because we looking at the historic photos, looking at this was a military camp at times, but then also trying to find a way that this thing could really lift up and open up in a similar way that the original band shell did. So Valerie did a fantastic job and found some more photographs that we can show. So this is just a modern photograph. There's the existing sort of bandstand that's there. We all know this. It's basically from about 1975 is what we understand when this was actually implemented. This photograph, starts a little hard to see. This is from kind of the mid-century era. You can still see the original Armory building. So this was before the senior center was built. And then the original band shell you can see on the side. You can also see how big that central plaza had gotten by, this is probably late 50s, early 60s, something like that would be my estimation based on the vehicles in the photograph. And then Valerie found this really fantastic photo that I'd never seen before of the actual bandstand structure prior to the construction of the Armory building. I did not know. I never saw a good image of this separate from the Armory. I always thought it was one building, actually. I did not realize this was a freestanding structure. So this became really interesting for us. It's a beautiful structure. We discussed this a great deal last time. Obviously, we can't just rebuild this. That is not what the Secretary of the Interior would recommend. And in all practicality, again, we cannot afford to do that at the level that would need to be done to be authentic.
It's a pretty cool photo. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, we're happy to share these. We'll send these out to everybody. Of course, this is back when it was called Washington Park because I suppose it's before the Armory, right? So, and then we just have a couple older photographs. This is Washington Park from about 1900, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with these photographs. With the Carnegie Library in the background, and then a much earlier photo, about 10 years from 1891, and obviously very little development had happened in the park at that point. So, we kind of look back and try to understand how this thing progressed over time. And the question of this pavilion is like, what is this form we want to create, right? It should be clearly, you know, a modern intervention because we're making a change to the park, but we want it to be referential and we want it to be something that's going to be used and be functional as well. And not just as a band shell. We see this as more of a shade structure. People can enjoy the park. So we'll show you what we're doing. So we took really that tent concept, and actually, sorry, here's the tent. So this is Camp Lowell. You know, but thinking about these sort of military tents and these kinds of structures, we thought was sort of an interesting way to begin to investigate form, which is where we came up with that sort of, you know, cantilevered prow that in that image. So this is the plan right now. The structure itself does sit, you know, in the center of the park. Matt described it, you know, great. You know, we are maintaining the central access through to the building. So, you know, we're not limiting that connection through the building. And then we're also allowing, obviously, the pedestrian traffic to move behind. The structure itself is, you know, you see the dashed line here. That is the limits of the actual roof shade portion of this structure. And then we would have a series of columns. We have 3 columns on either side that would come down to support that. And what that does for us is this entire space here is column free. So if we have a performance or a speaker, then there's, you know, obviously the audience would be out here and be able to, you know, have an unobstructed view of what was happening. In addition to that, we're creating 2 planters that are integrated with the hardscape that are associated with this, to basically to create a kind of backdrop and background and to really help to ground this structure in the ground, you know, you ground it in this space. We didn't have that. It was just 2 columns, and it was just like it would look like it was on toothpicks, right? It just didn't look balanced. It looked wrong. So we began to investigate that form a little more to try to understand what that is. I think Valerie and I are both still working on the shape of these planters. This is, you know, it's a variation. We've been through square things and round things and curvy things, and we're still, I'd like to get some feedback on that. We're still actively sort of trying to find the right form for that. What all this ends up looking like, because I know these are abstract drawings and they're difficult to read, is this is you know, basically a representation looking straight at the building. So similar to this image, sorry, let me jump back here. You know, we started to look at, you know, the dome structure obviously isn't terribly affordable, and just repeating curves just to repeat curves didn't seem like the right response either. But then we started to really think about, you know, the shape of this. You know, it did have a pitched roof. It did have a sort of this more pronounced roof line. So we felt like that might be something that we could lean into just a little bit and begin to create the form of this. What you're seeing, this is a better image actually. So you can see how this piece really does project forward. And then there are 3 structural pieces. We're showing them in colors right now. The colors are just, I think it'd be interesting to play with some color in here, but again, this is a conversation. But these are kind of, the way this works is these are the kind of 3 main structural elements, and then this center beam cantilevers from there, and then we frame the rest off of the structure. So what it helps us do, I think, is it maintains that central axis. It maintains the relationship to the door. It isn't a curve in the same sense, but we do get that arched and curved structural feeling with the lift in the center of the roof line. And then on the sides, what we're showing, again, these are the elements we're really still trying to work on, these sort of planter pieces that would act as backdrop elements for, you know, if this were a stage, it could also be someplace people obviously can sit. We could grow different material in here and even potentially vines. And then this white material, we were thinking some sort of variation. There are a lot of great sort of breeze block options now that we're looking through to find, is there a pattern block or a masonry element that we could create back there, you know, not to block the whole view, but to create a screen element that's durable. That's why we're thinking block and not you know, something lighter than that. But to create that kind of image from the front that focuses your attention on whether it's the performance or the thing happening in the space. This is from coming out the door of the senior center. So, you know, the Children's Museum is right here. Again, we're trying to emphasize that central access in the same way that was in the original design. And that's kind of what we have today. And that's why, so yes, we just be like, if you like it, if you don't, if you hate it, like tell us. That's why we're here today. So please.
It's way more elegant than the plans we're supposedly reviewing formally today.
That's good. That's what I want to hear. It's been a struggle. I'll be honest. This has been a struggle for Valerie and I. We know because of the geometry of the park, the importance of the park, you know, I mean, you guys love the park. The neighborhood loves the park. We know this. So we don't want to, you know, I don't want to stick my thumb in there, right? I want to make sure we're together on this. So anyway, sorry.
You know, I have an observation right off the bat, is that it seems to be a pretty small stage. And when you get, you know, a full mariachis with dancers, you know, strutting their, you know, their craft on the stage, that's not going to fit on there.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, it's 40 feet wide, I think. Is that right, Valerie?
Yeah, the whole canopy is 38 by 38.
But that is not all.
No.
That's not all stage, is it? Is there not some differentiation between concrete and?
Yes, there is. Hang on a second for me. I'll tell you approximately how big the stage actually is. So the stage itself, this concrete area in the center, is about around 700 square feet for where the stage actually is. It is going to be about 40 feet wide at the opening. Tapers down to probably, you know, we're probably in the 15, 12 foot range at the opening to the back to get to the door to the senior center.
It's going to be too small.
Okay. I mean, I will say, Maurice, this thing has grown and shrunk in size a few times because I think there is.
Well, you know, I do like the new design that you came up with. This is not again. This is pretty. Okay, but the fact is that, you know, there's a whole bunch of noise.
There we go.
Is somebody talking?
Yeah, Maurice, can you say that again? We had a little crosstalk.
Okay, so I was saying, you know, I like the new design. It's much nicer than the first versions that, you know, that you gave us, you know, but it's too small. Okay, I mean, it's, you know, I love those planters. They're very pretty, but this is stage space you're talking over here. As is, okay, we're not showing any elevation on the stage, which is unusual. Okay, usually a stage will be, you know, a couple of feet above the ground, at least, you know, to make it special. Okay, so you're taking that away. All right, fine. Okay, but now you're cutting down the actual stage space too much. Okay, and like I said, you know, you know, we have those mariachis festival on a regular basis. They come with dancers and everything else, and they're not going to fit.
So yeah, so what we can do, Maurice, is, you know, we can do some research on what the size of those performances are and see kind of where we are with that. And then and your point's well taken. I think, you know, it was larger at one point, and again, we shrunk it so it felt more in scale with the park. And then for smaller performances, like a band, like a jazz quartet or something like that would be fine. But you're right, large performances with a mariachi may not fit as well in this space. But we will let's do a little research on that. Okay.
You could create a slightly larger ovoid that interconnects the sidewalks instead of having to step on grass as is shown there.
No, you are. Yeah, that's a good point, John.
And you could changed the pattern so it's a larger ovoid that had smaller ovoids or kidneys or whatever within it.
Yeah, I mean, we could push that line out and basically, and what you're saying is maybe pull these back to the column line at least, and that would open up some space.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of different tweaks. My question, I do want to open this up to the board. My question is now process, because the bathrooms are in flux, the canopy's in flux. Do we do another courtesy review? Do we approve the things we agree on tonight and leave stuff for a future review? How do you want us to do that? Because this has nothing to do with the design package we saw
Yeah, I know.
or thought we were reviewing. And I'm glad because it is much better.
So Mike, next time what will happen is when you send a package to us, if internally you have done this kind of significant changes, please just send it to us so we can share with the board, because I think that the time is too short for the board to see this now, unless they are very comfortable making a decision on it. So,
and I just, like, in full transparency and honesty, we didn't finish these till about 5:30 today.
Good for you. It looks so much better.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree. Like, I was having the same problem, John. It did not feel right. And then
The one comment I was going to make about the old plans, it would have looked better if instead of the columns supporting the roof right on the edge, as if the roof swept out a little bit farther than the coast posts, and they just look like bare concrete block. And there is a prohibition on exposed concrete block, but if you use a decorative artful masonry device, or the planters, the cedars, so it doesn't look like, you know, mid-century modern grid patterns of different sorts of things, there's a lot of different options here. So I'm glad it's more in flux, because I wasn't super happy.
Okay.
And I was going to comment on it, but I'm at a point now where I'd like to say this is looking really good at the 75% level. Can we see it at the 90 level before we approve it and it gets permanent?
Right. I guess maybe that's a question then for Michael Taku, because
the
multiple reviews. Let me finish, Michael. The multiple reviews is something new for us and for the city. So, Michael, will we come back to Armory Park at some point in the future?
I would prefer them to just make one recommendation for not to piecemeal this, because based on what I'm hearing, they'll probably approve certain things and leave some in the air. When I take it to plans review subcommittee with some of the things approved and some left in the air, I don't think you are having a complete package. You will still have to come back to them. It's entirely up to you. My preference, my advice would be for you to probably come back with a complete package of what you have heard today, and based on this one, so they can just make one recommendation, and that package will be the one that I will take you to plans review.
Is Matt still on?
So for instance,
there is another component that we haven't spoken yet, which is the dog park. Are you going to present it? Because so far we haven't seen anything except some dimensions on the map that says dog park.
Okay.
Are you going to explain more about it?
Yeah, so we'll have to do that. If we can finish this discussion, we go back to Matt. What I do want to ask Matt though right now is, are we scheduled for PRS yet, or?
Not scheduled for landscape or PRS. It was all planned on this meeting.
Can we then just?
You are not yet scheduled for PRS, because I usually have to wait until you go to the advisory board. I know what the recommendation is. So at this point in time, you're not yet scheduled for PRS.
Okay, so how soon can we get back here?
We can try to be accommodating.
The
don't know what our next meeting dates are going to be, because that's the next item on the agenda.
So
no, that's fine. I mean, we're talking within a couple of weeks or a month. Is that?
Oh yeah.
What can happen here is that the board can choose to do a special meeting to give you a way forward so you can quickly get to PRS,
Yep.
And let me also say this, PRS in the month of November, they are only going to have one meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the month of December, they are only going to have one meeting. So
I mean, what I
in order for you to get to PRS, maybe in November or December, the
Mhm.
board will have to probably make a special meeting.
I think that's fine, right, Matt? In terms of the schedule.
Okay.
That stretched the schedule about 2 months more than we expected, but
Oh, did it?
it is what it is. So
All right.
we're still kind of learning through this new city process. So I think what we'll do is we'll talk to Elliot and other people in the city, but it sounds like we'll come back at 95%, which would be the next step with their process.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead, Stan.
First of all, I appreciate the effort in going through and presenting the different options that you had for the design. I think this probably comes closest to the one I think that's probably the most appropriate. I do have a little bit of a problem with the columns. I think that they look quite quite light. And the only one suggestion I might suggest is and this is true to the structural demand too, the columns that are furthest back toward the building are carrying the least amount of weight. The second set of columns is carrying more, and the third one's carrying even more.
Mhm.
I'm thinking that maybe give it some consideration to increasing the size of the columns as you're coming out and as it's carrying more weight. That's
Yeah.
number one.
That's a
Number
great
two-
suggestion. Thank you.
Eventually
no.
make it deeper too.
Yeah, I think that they need to look a little bit more substantial because when you look at that form from this angle that you're showing right now,
Mhm.
that angle looks really almost intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm obviously somebody's looked at this structurally that you can do it the way you can do it
Can you
right
turn
now.
that down, please?
Yeah. No, it works. Yeah, it works the way it is today.
You can make this work. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I agreed with John on the roofing material on the metal roofing, the decking. The decking that you have is more commercial, like John said. I think the round corrugated would be more appropriate. I can see why you're using it because of your spans.
So, well, let me explain that then. So the decking is in this application because of the size of the structure is actually a structural component in the design. So they take the deck into account to manage the shear.
Well, the diaphragm, the roof diaphragm.
Correct. We would
All
have
right.
a finished roof on top of that. We're not going to have the deck exposed on top. And I'll show you, we have some materials we can look at that we're looking at as well. So
All right.
we're not
Okay.
suggesting this is an exposed metal roof
But you're exposing the metal decking on the underside?
on the underside, which we would then paint as well. Now we can look at some other deck options. If it's the flute of the deck that's the problem, you can get decks that have a different profile underneath. So we'll investigate that and see if we can find a better product that has a different profile from underneath.
Okay. The other comments that I had was I'm probably less concerned about the size of the stage. I think that what you've got is probably more than adequate for the size of the presentations that go before us. I think the thing that bothers me the most is the orientation. I mean, we got a west orientation. It's got to be tough in the afternoon.
I know.
On the presentation or the people who are performing.
Yep.
From 2 o'clock on till sun goes down. That's a bear.
And we discussed that. Yeah,
Come
we discussed that a bit last time. And I guess it's an open question there as well. I mean, I think the preference when we came out from speaking to you last time was that it to have the same orientation that the original structure would have had, which would have been west facing. Because then that aligns with the orientation of the park, the symmetry of the park, which is kind of Beaux-Arts nature of it. I think we're trying to stretch that tip out to help mitigate some of that, right? To get as much shade on the performers as we can. And then don't forget, we do have landscaping, right? So we are going to be replanting those tree lines, that are coming down both sides of the walk and then also across 6th Avenue. So I think that when these mature, then at least at those last few, the last hour of daylight, or at least 45 minutes, it will get behind the tree line.
listen, I'm not making that an issue in terms of where you're going to orientate it. I think it's orientated the way it should be
Okay,
orientated.
all right.
I'm
No,
not arguing that point. I'm just saying it's unfortunate that we have a
It is.
west exposure.
I
Um,
agree.
the other thing that I've noticed, and maybe I'm seeing the site plan wrong, but when you showed the site plan, you showed two trees. It looked like they're new trees directly out in front of the
So we'll have to go back. Yeah, we gotta go back to the other step. Okay.
and I would think that that would have a tendency to block any views of people setting out beyond that. I mean, I don't know,
You're
how
true.
it's going to affect it, but my sense is it may be better to leave those trees out to get more visual exposure to the stage.
Right. You're saying right here, this area?
Yeah, there were two trees that were shown there, and I just from a functional standpoint of how this
Mhm.
band shell or whatever you want to call it is being used. I mean, visually, I would think that that would be blocking anybody who's setting out on that west section there to look directly into the stage. I mean, maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know, but it just seems like it's a visual blockage.
Mhm.
Unless you can show me or convince me that those are necessary because they may be providing some shade eventually on, but I don't know.
So that's what we were trying to go for, is with that western exposure, just putting something there to block it. And they're pistache that are going to get up fast and tall pretty quick. So hopefully they'll have a clear trunk on them. That's not going to be too many views.
Well, if they got if they've got a good views from under the tree line, I mean, the leaf line or the branches, maybe it's okay when it's mature, but it seems like it's a blockage right now to me.
There's one more thing that I remarked is the lawn in front of the stage. If you look at the existing stage, okay, it's at the south side of the property, okay, but if you go from the stage all the way to the north of the property, it's all dirt. It's either dirt or it's actually some kind of paving, okay, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of those venues, when they do happen, the senior center takes chairs out and tables out. And you don't want to put these on a lawn. You want to put this on something hard. Otherwise, it kills the lawn to start with.
Mhm.
So, it's another issue going on here. Your lawn is not going to last very long, if any.
It will if it's maintained. We were thinking it would be a lot more pleasant to sit on a lawn than to sit on concrete.
Well, it's true when you're a younger person, but not everybody young sits over there. A lot of folks sits on, tables and chairs.
Sure.
And like I said, this is not going to work too good on a lawn.
Okay.
I have one other comment that I wanted to mention, and that is that there's no implication of any lighting that is suspended from the structure. Is there intentions of actually providing lighting for the stage during
Yes.
performances?
Yes, we'll have lighting in this structure. We're considering maybe something kind of concealed within the space of the joist. So it's, so you don't see the fixture necessarily, but it lights maybe a little bit of the structure and then the surface below.
Okay.
And then we would also have power and out here and other things. So if they want to set up lighting towers and things like that for actual performances, then they'll have the infrastructure to be able to add that as well. We won't have permanent lighting for performance, though. We're not doing that just because of the cost of those, and they're very delicate instruments as well.
Yeah.
And a touch on lighting for the park. All the lighting that's currently at the courts will be removed. That's not in the historic context. Any of the other globe lights will be relamped for LED. Any of the floodlights that have been added to them will be removed. And then we are proposing adding some lights in between the cypress and the dog park.
I'm sorry, Helen's been trying to speak for a little bit. Helen.
She's next.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I think that using this geometry is incredibly good because it reinforces the geometry of the park.
Okay.
And obviously we supported the idea of the centrality of this feature.
Okay.
Again, because of the geometry of the park. So I think that is really good stuff. I think that your decision to create sort of a base columns here with planters is also extremely good because it's multifunction, people can sit, but it also defines the back of the stage in a very appropriate way. I gather you're using turf in front of the stage area. And I think that there are multiple advantages to that, because if you do have a larger performance, a dance group, they can move from the stage surface onto the turf, and you have that possibility. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is acoustic. With a shell like this, have sort of looked into what impact this design would have on the actual acoustic character
For performance or just in the park?
for performance?
So generally the shape would support sort of like projecting some, acoustic sound out from the structure, because you'll get basically reflected sound that will then come back down to the audience here. It's not going to project it very far out into the space. So, but it's also a relatively small space if you are doing an acoustic performance. If this were a larger event, then they would have amplification, and then the acoustics of the band shell really don't matter anymore at that point. So
that was why I was wondering about the panels behind. If they are perforated, what impact would that have?
Oh, these panels?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Again, I think they help. I think they help. One of the things about acoustics with some of these spaces, you want to diffuse the sound as well. So if sound is traveling backwards and it's reflecting, you want that to come back to you diffused. So it wants to hit a more of an irregular surface. So if we had some sort of a material here that had a pattern to it, or if we're more like a breeze block where it had some holes through it, that would probably help us diffuse that reflection from behind the performers. And then we would get a more pure reflection off the actual structure of the canopy itself. That would probably help the performance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think the design is excellent. I think the shape of the planters is excellent. I think the idea of the curve in front of it that sort of reflects on the ground, the idea of the original acoustic shell. I think this is very good.
Great. Thank you, Alan.
Ben and Pat still might need a moment.
Go ahead.
Lynn,
No, go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, I live in a very small house with someone else, so you're going to get background noise. I like the looks of it. I understand everything that you're saying. I actually feel that sharp angle is, for me, a bit aggressive or non-organic, to use a trendy term. But I understand if it's structural and cannot be changed, then that's the way it is. I like the curves that are there, and I would like to see more of them. Otherwise, I understand everything. I think that your planters need to be well established to keep them from becoming little junkyards. And I do agree with Helen that the fact that the concrete part flows directly into the turf does make it easier for larger productions to expand into the community and to the audience. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Lynn. I want to address the elevated stage just quickly, because I know Maurice brought it up as well. So the city requested that we not elevate the stage. And one of the issues with elevating the stage is then we also have to provide accessible access to get on top of the stage which takes us back to the existing band shell with stairs and ramps and all these, the whole thing spreads out as a much larger construction the minute we elevated it. So again, it's not something we can't do, but it's something we chose not to do intentionally. And part of it is what Lynn and Helen had brought up, is the idea that this, most of the time there's no performance here. This is a shade structure for people to sit under and enjoy their lunch. So we didn't want to create this sort of barrier with an elevated space. So I just want to address like why we did this. This was intentional. It wasn't an afterthought. So, but thank you for your comments, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to take a look at this. It's been a lot of hard work, obviously, and thought put into just have a few items.
Mm-hmm.
Helen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question. Does this park have an individual National Register listing, or is it just part of the larger district?
Pending,
John?
I think.
Hello?
As far as I know, it is part of the district. I do not believe at this point it has an individual listing.
Okay.
I'm looking it up right now, so give me just a second.
An application was made, but I don't know if it's been accepted by the National Park Service.
So there is an application pending, is that right?
Steve Grady put together a package and approached SHPO about it, which it was supposed to be forwarded, but that process, because of staffing and changes and other things, I think is kind of like not dead in the water, but sitting there. But there is an application made. The study has been made to make the application to the National Park Service.
Okay.
But it's not on the National Register as an individual.
Right. But if there's
it is a contributor to a district. It's not individually listed yet. It is a contributor.
If there's something in process, then I think we need to take that into consideration. Because this will be the largest architectural statement in the park. And it'll be a dominant structure.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to know the status of that other nomination and how it was put together, and whether the city is going to continue to back that, or whether they're going to back off of it for something else. The other thing that I'm concerned about is I think you mentioned it, is the western exposure.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, good. The former band shell faced north, I think, for a number of reasons. One having to do with the climate.
I'm sorry, it faced west. It always faced west.
Oh, it always faced west.
Yes, it always faced west.
Oh, okay. I thought there was.
We go back to this photograph here. You can see, there's the Children's Museum, or the old Carnegie Library. The band shell is here, and then the Armory is directly behind it. So the band shell had to face west.
Okay, well then I stand corrected. I think that I would just be concerned with the status of that register nomination and how that impacts this project.
Okay, can I actually try to clarify that? Because here is what happened. Steve Grady prepared this nomination at the time, which was like 15 years ago. People were not really understanding that parks were an important part of the system, the National Register system. That has changed. And at this point, that needs to be resubmitted. And actually, I have been badgering Steve to take care of that, and I will continue to.
And the other thing too, Mr. Chair, I may want to add is we should be reviewing this on the current status of the park, not waiting. We cannot be reviewing this in anticipation.
The park will be renovated before the National Register lists the park. I am well aware of that.
Well, I think you want to get some understanding from the state is that, you know, would this structure preclude its being listed?
I doubt that, and we're also in a tough situation because SHPO has always deferred to the HPO, which we don't have. But in my mind, it is at least in some ways a classically defined form in a classically defined orientation, even though it is a modern form that could be considered compatible because of its time that it was built with the classical structure of the park.
Also, a group of my students did a historic American landscape survey, which I'm sure Michael has at this point. And I think the analysis sort of listed the defining characteristics of the park. And I think the geometry is one of those characteristics. And there are 2 points here. Number one, this is reversible, which is always, you know, sort of technical. But also it does replicate the geometries that are actually probably the most defining characteristics of the space.
That's all I have.
I'm sorry, let me just add, I think it sounds like we are coming back. I'm happy to reach out to SHPO and just have a conversation about this and then report back when we come meet with you.
Sure, that's fine. Any information, I mean, collaborative effort's going to be better. You are moving towards a signature statement in the park, which I think enhances the neighborhood and the district as a living entity.
Yeah.
And you know, compatible, we all know, is a subjective term.
Yes.
I'm very glad that you went for the angle instead of the square orientation to the roof. I'm glad it cantilevers out and over. I'm glad that the plan we were supposed to approve tonight is dead in the water because it looks great from the sides, but it kind of looks like a kid's drawing of a schoolhouse from the front.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
So I'm glad it's moving this way. Let's address the dog park and quick questions on lighting and parking so that we can at least approve things that you probably will need to start moving forward with so that we can leave the fun design elements to a later time. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's see that dog park because it's way different than we saw in January.
So I touched on it quickly, but the main reason for the change in the dog park was this water line running through, and that's right through the center of this where the gates line up. And Tucson Water has informed us that's a 16-inch main transmission line that was installed somewhere in the 40s, and we need to do our best to not hit it. So gates are there for their access, and the reorientation of the park is because of that water line. This is more or less in the footprint of the existing courts. It expands slightly down to the south towards the stage, but more or less the square footage that the courts take up is what the dog park is right now.
What square footage is it? Because it's not called out in the plans.
I do not have a handy right now, but I can send that to you.
Like a general ballpark, because in my mind it looks like the size of everybody's front yard in the neighborhood.
It is. It's undersized for a dog park. I want to say the small dog park is about 2,500 square feet, and the larger is about 5,000 square feet, where typically dog parks are in the acre range. So this is more of a relief area than a formal dog park.
So it's more for apartment dwellers that have no outside space to use than people who have yards that probably are larger than this.
Correct. And the idea is that
Because we've always
the
had the
large-
question if it was large enough to be functionally useful.
it's functionally useful as more of a relief area. As far as dogs running around, dogs can run in this, but the larger running area is going to be down at Santa Rita Park or over at Iron Horse.
Okay,
Question, so sorry, Helen.
go ahead, Lynn.
Boiling this all down, I just heard that this is going to be a giant doggy potty.
Yeah, you
And
could look at it that way.
so I don't see the point of that.
It was not specified in the proposition language, but it became a focus of the word cloud comments in the Parks Association outreach to the public of requests and numbers of requests compared to the comments they got. So it got included as a proposition. There has always been the question of is it significant enough to even be useful over time? I can see it being useful for, we have a lot more apartment dwellers downtown, but you know, would more open park also be a good thing? And that's not necessarily in our purview. I don't like it because it's screening and it feels like it's cutting off the park. And I don't find it's that useful, but I have a large yard. So, you know, we try to balance things here. The shape has changed. It used to be kind of a pointed trapezoid that went farther west, but it seems like it was snugged up north more than it is now. So it's kind of a larger form. Is that because of the geometries that have developed in the last 6 months, or the size and scale you needed, or
That was to reduce the overall size of the dog park. Where it came to that triangular point didn't add that much square footage, and we received feedback that we had a triangular point in the small dog park and a large dog park, and there was concern that dogs get trapped and there could be potential fighting and other issues with those short corners.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I do. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ellen.
For a minute, which is, this is proportionately too large for the park. And it also impacts the use of the stage area by cutting it off. So the previous plan that we saw did not have this extension to the south, as far as I can remember. If you were going to extend this dog park, the place to extend it would be to the west rather than to cut off this immediate of the center. So I'm concerned about the size, its projection to the south there. I think we need to talk about that.
And I do have more questions about the park. Do you have a dog yourself, Matt?
I do.
Oh, yes,
Do
I
you
have
own a dog?
I have 2 German Shepherds, yes.
Okay. Okay, do you take your dogs to dog parks?
No, I take them for walks, but I don't take them to dog
Oh,
parks.
okay. Matt, do you have dogs?
I do. I have two. I have two that are about 50 pounds.
Okay, do you take them to dog parks?
I do.
Okay, what do they do when they get to the dog park? Do they go running with other dogs? And in order to do that, do they need the space to do it? And if that is the case, is that enough space for your dogs to run in that little park there, which, by the way, is taking almost a quarter of the available space of Armory Park?
Well, I think the real conversation is if I had the ability to take my dogs to a larger dog park, I would. But most of the community for these dog parks is going to be apartments, smaller condos. So if I was in that situation, I would have probably a smaller dog. Or even if I had the size of dog I do, I would want a space where they could at least run around or relieve themselves.
Okay, so
it's
you
that
just
compromise.
Okay, so you just said that you want to make a compromise to be amenable to the apartment dwellers. I could see that. Did you ever think about putting up some plastic bag stations like you see in normal parks, so that the dog owners can take care of their dogs? But basically, a dog park is a place where your dog goes to run with other dogs. This is not sufficient for your dogs to do that. This is too small. Even though Helen says that as it is, it's too big and it takes over the stage space, and she's right. Okay, it's Armory Park is not that big of a place. If you want to do something for the apartment dwellers, then you use the money that you were going to use for that, and you put some stations all over the park where you get some free plastic bags deliveries, so that they could take care of the dogs' poops and let the dogs go around. That's the whole point of bringing a dog to a park, is to let it run. And over here, you don't have the space for it.
And those are valid thoughts and concerns, and all ones that we have approached the city with, and we have looked at not having a fenced area. I guess I'll stop calling it a dog park, and just having relief posts with dog bags and trash cans throughout the park, or having pieces of agility equipment. So it's a on-leash dog park without any of the fences. But ultimately, with both the Ward 6 and community feedback, they've wanted a fenced area that they can have the dogs contained and feel safe with that. And some of the feedback earlier from
the question, is that going to happen in Santa Rita Park or no?
They're getting one that's about 3 times the size, as I recall.
Okay.
They're getting at least an acre
Because
park.
this is not big enough for my dogs to run at. That is for sure.
Exactly. It belongs in Santa Rita Park, not Armory Park.
I just feel Armory Park should be for the people, not for the puppies. But, and I love dogs, so that's hard for me to say, but that's what I feel.
I do want to caution the board. We are only one group of stakeholders in this conversation. So we kind of have to comment what's being presented, but it's fine to have a collective idea that it seems pointless to put in a dog park in this park, but that doesn't negate the work that the team have done in trying to develop a thoughtful area to place it and scale it. And the fences look better, but
I'm certainly not negating that.
I don't like the fences. We were preferring temporary things that could be for weekends or other things the last time we discussed this. They are less intrusive than the fences that were shown in January. I think black is a little harsh to paint all the metalwork in the park. When we're looking at colors, I looked at the park bench manufacturer site, and it's like, oh, champagne is kind of neutral. It might fade out, and the upper part of some of the light fixtures should be silver, not black everywhere. So really dark elements are a visual barrier as well. But I don't think you've got a consensus from us that a dog park's a great idea for the historic park.
But John, I also think one of the considerations is here is the geometry and proportions of this park. And I think if you were going to try to conceal a dog park in the park and still contain this as a community space, taking that entire slice out is problematic. It might actually be better to design the park, if you have to have these additional spaces, to take more of the corner, the northwest corner, than to take the immediate area around the performance space.
That's a valid point.
I
Then,
think
go ahead, Helen.
You know, it's a small park to start with. So if you lose a quarter of a park to a dog park, that makes it even smaller. Okay. This is not Santa Rita Park. This is not even a full block. With the senior center, it's a half a block.
I would just echo John's comment, though, that there are a lot of stakeholders saying that they want the dog park. I'm not arguing that you're
No.
wrong or this wouldn't be useful. There are a lot of voices telling us what they want in Armory Park. So
no, I'm sure that's true. And I'm just saying, is there a better way to compromise
Yeah.
on it?
no, yes, I agree, Helen. I appreciate your comment, and yeah, I agree. Maybe we do stretch it further across the north side of the park.
So Helen, to your question or your point, what I'm showing on the screen currently is what we presented in January. So for reference, this tree right here is one of the existing Chinese elms that's out there. And if I go to this plan, that's this tree right here.
I thought that was
So-
a pistache.
Pistachio right here.
Okay.
Whatever tree it is, the one that's right here, that's where the fence line is. And then what we presented in January, it's maybe encroached to the south 5 feet, if that, but it's more or less in the same proportions. We've just lopped off these triangular bits, and this was the city's concern and dogs getting caught in these corners. So if anything, we've made the dog park smaller than what we presented in January, but we haven't encroached any further south, or this distance here isn't any different because this stage area shrunk a little bit, but we're still maintaining that sight line.
But you know, the whole idea of a dog park is to be able to free your dogs so they can run around with other dogs. So the smaller you make it, the least visible it becomes.
We can argue till we're blue in the face. The question is political, and it may be out of our hands, and we need to.
To add a little levity to all this, what if we just call it a dog relief area instead of dog park?
It would be more appropriate. You are at least keeping the turf there and going to try to maintain it, correct?
Correct.
Yep, because that's exactly what I want to sit next to when I go see something at the park, is a doggy relief area.
I mean, it's a good point. You know, I mean,
I'm sorry, people at dog parks do not pick up after their dogs. That's one reason why they go there. They're little, excuse my French, they're little shitholes.
I think one of the problems is Armory Park Functions has the effective city park for all of Tucson to come to, and it has always been defined as a people space, and to cut out a chunk might not be the best location in that, you know, the TEP lot, or even where the Children's Museum Park or somewhere else might be a better place. But
well, and I think also that the park, a large portion of its function is as a place for memorials. I'd have to agree with the observation that perhaps the dog park, with all of its attendant problems, is not compatible.
that argument could be made. Whether it would be heard or not is another question.
Well,
Right.
I'm not sure that our argument has to be whether there's a dog park or not. I mean, it's obviously a kind of privatization of public space. That is something that we're, so overwhelmed with all the time. But if we are to have a dog park, because that is what the majority of people have decided we need, then I think we need to argue to protect the structure and function of a historic park. And that is why this extension to the south is really bothersome.
So the dog park question, we're going to continue.
Until it disappears.
Okay, can I change the subject for a second? Are there going to be the same number of parking spaces with your restriping?
I believe,
Or do you get 5 to 8 more? With
I
the
believe
new
we're losing 2.
overall, including the new staff parking?
No, we're gaining 8 there, I believe.
So we're
So a
gaining
net
6 with,
6.
we net 6 with the restriping you're proposing to alter the access. That
Right.
seems reasonable for the size of the scale of the park. In my mind.
And we're only losing those spaces to accommodate these planting areas.
Okay. Are we okay on the parking, folks?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we okay on the demolition plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see the
Yes.
light.
I'm sorry, I'm hungry.
I know. I feel like a circus man. I feel like I'm, got a whip in my hand. It's just we've got to accomplish something, or we'll be here all night.
Right.
We can leave open items, but we've got to give them something concrete that they can move forward with, so that they can share the current state of the plans with other people, noting that very little of what we've seen tonight relates to the development package that we were presented with.
Well, I think we have to come back to you anyway. I mean, if we're going to come back to you for the pavilion, don't we have to come back with everything, Matt? Or do you, Matt, do you want to try to accomplish some level of approval tonight?
I guess it all depends on Michael's guidance that can we go to PRS or the landscape subcommittee with half approvals here, or are we just better off waiting for everything?
No, as I said before, I don't think I'll be doing you justice to let you take partial things and take you to PRS. PRS likes to get a full review, so you leave from here, you go to PRS, you're not coming back here, and that's a better way for you to move forward. If you want to go and move between reviews, PRS back to Armory Park, I just believe it's a waste of time.
Yeah, we're doubling the number of reviews we have to do, frankly.
Yeah. And then in between, you still have to, you're talking about going to historic landscape subcommittee. You may do that, and you may ask the board to do a special meeting depending on when you think you can revise your drawing. Come back to them. We just go to PRS with a full set of recommendations from Armory Park for everything that you have. Armory Park plans review makes its own one-time review or another review recommendation, and you move forward from there. I think that's better for you.
Here's another question then for you, Matt. Given what Michael just said, I mean, and your experience, I mean, Elliot's not here, right? It's just us.
Just us, yeah.
I mean, does the city have an appetite for us to go back and sort of consider some other design options? Kind of going back to Helen's question, or I haven't been sort of in some of those more those larger sort of logistics meetings in terms of what we're doing. So
we have a little bit of flexibility, but I guess the meat and potatoes is, as we presented it, we can look at finessing different areas, but that's about the limit right now. We can move the dog park fence plus or minus, or explore different shapes, but I think removing the dog park in full right now is probably off the table.
right.
Well,
and what I'm hearing is that Helen is saying that, while the dog park is not ideal, her issue with it is more the geometry of it within this park, and maybe, I don't know, Helen, the fence, or no, it's more just the geometry and the orientation of it.
Because this is a geometric park. That's its fundamental. That's why your design for the stage is so good, because it maintains that geometry. I mean, if you're going to say, what is the overall most important defining characteristic of the space? It's the geometry.
Yeah.
And so
And-
when
and-
you're inserting something that interrupts that overall symmetry and geometry, it's obviously an accommodation. And you have to make accommodations sometimes, I understand that, but they should be as uninvasive as possible.
And as far as the size of the stage, I would advise you to check with the city of Tucson what the standards were for Tucson Meet Yourself music stages, even the folk festival. That'll give you an idea how much space you actually need. But just by looking at that drawing, it's not going to be sufficient. You know?
But Maurice, again, we're talking about the proportions of this park.
Yeah.
And it may be that this is not the place to have a gigantic stage. You know, I'm concerned about these proportions and the geometry.
And I think
It
Helen is
doesn't-
right. Helen is right, because if you look at the park on Stone and Speedway, that particular park, the character defining feature was a geometry that was being looked at. They went to West University and had a similar discussion you are having today. And the geometry was the one that determined most of the placement of the things. And then as far as the dog is concerned, it looks like these projects that go through the bond project process, there's always a dog park, which is a component of it. So I like the discussion you are having, but as to whether it is going to change or move, that there will be no dog park here, I'm not sure.
It doesn't have to be a gigantic stage. It has to be adequate. And again, like I said, you know, for a three-piece jazz ensemble, I don't see any problem. But if you bring in anything bigger than that, you're not going to have that space. And with that being huge, just check with the city of Tucson what they use for the Church Avenue, the Church Street music stage last week for Tucson Meet Yourself. That was perfect. And it was not gigantic.
Quick question, would a compromise potentially be to not have a small dog park and a big dog park, but to have a single dog park that was tucked more up against the sidewalk, and just for, it wouldn't address the static geometry of it, but if it was more kind of a curve that mimicked the planters that you're proposing, if it was just a kind of a sinuous line and felt more naturalistic, it would possibly be more compatible with the park itself being just a single fenced element instead of a very rigid blocky form that presents a flat face that everybody's up against.
John, I think those naturalistic curves are definitely not in keeping with the geometry of this park.
Okay, I just thought I'd throw that out there as a way to make it obviously an intrusion that was less visible.
Oh, gee. Well,
And snugged as far out of the way as possible. But, you know,
Yeah.
we're all kind of doing the brainstorm thing, and I think this is a healthy exercise because this stuff's going to be built. Let's
Yeah, but you know, at the same token, you know, let's think about the dogs themselves. Like I was saying earlier, what does a dog do when he goes to a dog park? He goes running with the other dogs. Okay, if you put him in a little, you know, in a little fenced-in area where you can only turn around and that's about the size of it, it's not really going to be used much. Let's put it that way.
let's see the lights you're going to show us. Because I looked them up online and they kind of look like, I have a feeling that the UFO sightings in Armory Park are going to go up if you place those in there, but they're kind of fun too, in a weird way.
Woohoo!
So those lights are proposed for around the dog park around the perimeter of the performance area, and then the fill in between the existing cypress.
And they're 14
Those-
feet tall plus the like 20. I guess you picked the 18-inch caps.
Yes. And these were
But
selected because they are vandal resistant.
they're hard to read from those drawings. Can you pull up a photo?
Yes. Need to find the number on them.
I think they're the A18s. In the cements. I looked them up, but I wasn't able to do anything but a giant download that I couldn't split apart.
And then I've seen a lot of talk on the Armory Park listserv about dark skies and shielding lights and that sort of thing. Does that work into this?
These are all dark sky compliant, correct?
Great, perfect, thank you.
They appear to be downlights with kind of directional footprints.
Okay,
They are a little warm for my taste at the 3000 level, but you probably need that. Anything above 3500 Kelvin would be a bit too hot or bright. But I think you're in the 3028 to 3100 level.
Yeah, I believe it's about 2,500.
And they're anodized. There's color choices. Could they be a lighter, more muted shade than yet another black feature to compete with the historic lamps?
Yeah, I believe we can do custom colors if needed on this, but I think there's architectural bronze and maybe even some gunmetal type, but we can look into that.
They list about 12 colors, and from the listing, probably the light bronze rather than the dark bronze might be more muted. Just like the options for the park benches and the other things. I looked at the site that showed the what are they called? Plaza City or something like that. Are you picking the city, town, or village versions?
Those are actually in flux now, so we'll have to present those for sure at the next full review. But we had presented the city, I believe, and the city came back and they want concrete benches. So we're going to have a different style of bench and tables for this package.
That's too bad. I like if you could go with the Plaza Village. They're kind of like nice. The Plaza City is a little bit Copenhagen.
We'll take that to the city and see if they have any flexibility on that.
Okay. So you've gotten some guidance. It sounds like the best thing is that we make a motion to continue and reschedule a special meeting for you sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think, Michael, if we can work backwards and get on the PRS for November and then work backwards and schedule this as a special meeting, that would probably work best.
We are actually having a historic landscape subcommittee on the 31st. The meeting is on the 31st. So if you want to calculate that.
On the of October?
31st of October.
Okay.
Could also go there for a courtesy review
So
and come back after you get feedback from PRS.
as an aside, I will not be available on the
They have
31st.
done, John, they have already done a courtesy review with PRS.
Okay. Jody allowed applicants to rename a review as a courtesy. Is that a possibility, or are you being formatted so that we have to continue it?
No, you have to, this thing is scheduled as a full review. You have to continue the review. We cannot schedule as a full review and then you come during the review and turn it to be a courtesy review. No.
Okay. So we need more information on the furniture of the park and updated changes, images of the lighting with color options, possibly a rethink of the scope and scale of the dog park, and of a more complete package with where you're going with the both the bathrooms and the canopy that you've shown us tonight, that doesn't really have anything to do with the design package we got to review, correct?
Correct.
Is that the information you were looking for?
It is. This has been helpful.
Okay.
So what I think you can do, based on what Helen just said, the historic landscape subcommittee is meeting on the 31st. You can contact Steve Brady to, I think he's very good at putting that thing up, and go for that one. You can talk with Armory Park today. They can set up a special meeting before November 11th. And we can get a recommendation from them for everything that they have done, and we can look into seeing if we can schedule you for, oh, I'm saying September 11th. The next plans review subcommittee is going to be November 14th, and we can see into if we can get you onto that agenda, so that before you go to plans review subcommittee, you've done all your review with Armory Park. I'm a little bit reluctant to piecemeal and take you to plans review, and that they have recommended approval for this, but this is still pending. I don't like to do that because it's just a waste of time.
The Historic Landscape Subcommittee meeting is on the 31st at 10 a.m.
They might also be able to help you brainstorm, because they've
Yeah.
got expertise.
Yeah.
That is an in-person meeting.
Great.
You
Sounds
can
good.
do that, and then the board can decide as to when they want to hold their special meeting after your historic landscape subcommittee, which is probably going to be sometime way before the 14th of November, and we can see into getting you into the PRS agenda on that 14th, which is already a big agenda anyway. So
Okay.
We are trying to be helpful.
yeah,
Mhm.
do that, John. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And I'm glad you are developing them, because everything you've shown looks better tonight than what we got.
It's just not fully baked, right?
Yeah. It's okay.
Here, here.
No, but I'm glad we came, because now, like, I feel much more confident finishing what we're doing and coming back. So I really do appreciate this. This has been hugely helpful for us.
I will say that because we're going to continue it, I am not writing a 27-page LAR.
No,
So please listen to the recording over and over again. I will do a summary.
Come on,
it would
John.
just be a summary, a 1 page or something. Particularly the motion is the most important thing here anyway. And
Yeah.
I think they are taking notes. The recording will be available. You can listen to it and get all what we discussed, please.
So who wants to make the motion to continue?
I'll make the motion to continue.
I second the
I'll make-
motion.
Great.
No, you cannot second without making the motion, man.
Ah.
The motion is not yet made.
What do I need to do?
You have to wait. When he makes the motion, then you can second the motion, because you're not
Okay.
seconding anything.
Okay, yeah, in the matter at hand today, I am making a motion to continue at a further date with a special session if necessary. Will you
No,
second the motion?
as possible. A special session as possible.
A special session as possible.
Great.
Lynn,
Any more discussion?
A second.
Do you want to say in your motion the things that you want them to come back with, or you believe that Matt has taken note of them and that should be fine?
They're gonna listen to this tomorrow.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Basically, it's basically everything, right?
No, you can skip to, you can,
A lot of the things on the list are fine. You know,
Yeah, no, yeah.
you're gonna have to do what you're gonna have to do with the bathrooms. The parking looks like it's all right. The tree replacement's there. I hope you consider adding a tree that we might be able to name or do something with the ward office. The lights we'd like to see, and furniture we'd like to see,
These are
and
my girls.
we just encourage you to perhaps connect the stage area to the walkways instead of having to walk on the grass. Probably.
Yeah. Got it.
But yeah, and I like the colors. Not necessarily oranges, but are you envisioning that as like steel form instead of a masonry form for those supports now?
Yeah, those will be tube steel.
Mr. Chair,
Great. Good.
when the cause of emotion, we need to vote and then you can do the discussion, please.
I was just making sure that we have a first and a second motion on the table, and I just wanted to make sure the discussion was done. Okay, I'm going to call the motion. Roll call. I say aye. Helen.
Aye.
Who's next on this list? Pat.
Aye.
Maurice.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
And Lynn.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate all the stuff you're doing and your thoughtful approach.
Thanks, John.
And I'm sorry we're such a stickler, but you know.
No,
It's all
I
good.
appreciate the discussion as well. I mean, we need to talk about these things and make sure, we're being transparent, what we're doing. So no, this has been really
Sounds like
helpful.
we also need to talk to the ward office and see if they would consider a compromise of stations in the park.
Yeah.
Just because of usefulness, but we'll see. Again, we're just stakeholders. Thanks so much for coming, guys. And
thank you. Appreciate your
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.
And appreciate all that. And we'll move on with our agenda. Okay. This
Thank
is Maria.
you.
There's Maria. Thanks. Maria. Hi.
Hello.
You're still wearing the same outfit as last week.
I hope not.
You're just seeing her photo. The photo is the same photo.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the background is my husband's photograph.
Yeah, she's wearing something different, John.
But I have my parrot too that I want to. Oh, I don't know if you can see her. Anyway.
She real?
Yeah, she's real. Her name is Sunny.
Hi, Sunny.
Since everybody, since everybody's showing their doggies.
So I take it that West University didn't jump and they are insisting on the third Tuesday.
No, they did.
They went ahead and graciously, made a motion and was approved, seconded and approved, to meet instead of every third Tuesday. They're going to start meeting every second Tuesday of each month, virtually.
Fabulous. So we're okay. We're okay then going forward, because I looked at the dates.
Yeah,
and
you're
the
good.
first and
You
the
don't
fourth.
You don't need to take any action on that item.
Okay, great.
But
So
however, I would like to just make sure that Mr. Chair, members of the board, that the board will continue to hold hybrid meetings, because today, the space was not secured, and then we just wanted to make sure that the boards and commissions receive the revised agenda with the correct meeting location, which was virtual for today. So they wouldn't tell us later on, you need to redo this meeting because it didn't meet the requirements.
I understand that.
Mhm.
The special meeting, the special meeting will be when it will be. There will be a live, non-recorded special meeting again on November 12th, because hopefully it's looking like we may have some candidates moving forward. And then whatever you end up scheduling in November, and then it would be nice to have a live meeting if we have to do it in December. with plenty of notice and much prior commitment to make sure the school isn't closed.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want the board to end up with that situation that the whole meeting needs to be repeated. And also as a courtesy for any member of the public that was intending of showing up in person, and then there was nobody there to guide them that, you know, the meeting was actually gonna be virtually.
Staff at Safford were there on hand if anybody showed up tonight.
Okay, excellent. That's good
So I
to
make
hear.
sure of that.
But the experience has shown that even when they do the hybrid, the public, no member of the public has shown up for any meeting anyway. It's usually board members. It's usually John, Maurice, Stan. Those are the people who are showing up every time. We have not had any member of the public showing up for any of those meetings.
Okay.
So, John, you are saying that there will be a special meeting on November 12th?
Yes, it's a 5-minute meeting where we present candidates if we have them to be voted in and recommended for nomination to mayor, or to send in an application to mayor and council to be 2025 board members moving forward. And it's looking like we might have a couple people that will do it.
Will you schedule the this project that you just continued on that day?
No, because it's in conjunction with the APNA annual meeting on the second Tuesday, which is elections and speakers and all sorts of things. They open the meeting and then they close the meeting, and we have to have a quorum just to pass the vote so that we can forward the recommendations to staff and mayor and council for any candidates. And that's it. It's a single question item.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, so if I'm hearing correctly, the next special meeting for this board would be November 12th. However, just take into consideration, please, that the WUSAP is gonna hold now their meetings on the second Tuesday of each month. So the WUSAP will be holding their meeting on November 12th.
Maria, because it's just a one-item question of potentially forwarding candidates' names to mayor and council, and there are no reviews, you don't have to attend, and you can go to West University on that date. The other special meeting we do need to now consider, though, is roughly when you want us to be available for it probably should be a Zoom meeting so that Michael can show us whatever he designed that morning for our next meeting. On this single item again. And then if we have other issues that come back, we could potentially have the case that was continued last month if they revise their things, because that should be straightforward.
Mr. Chair, if we are still in the meeting, we're actually discussing out of the agenda though.
We were just under the meeting topic, so it came up, and I'm trying to combine.
Let's circle back to the agenda, please, and come back to this.
Okay. Discussion on potential board members. Helen has some thoughts on some former members that could juggle their things and possibly become available to join the board next year. But those are still conversations, so I'm not going to name any names. Do you want to, Helen?
No, you're blowing my cover. I'm trying to make this work. Don't say anything to anyone. Okay.
Has anybody else approached or found anybody in the last month that they think might be good?
No.
Okay. Well, if you can think of anybody, it'd be great. The only requirement is that they're alive. And have a computer.
I qualify.
Yeah. Because all the three qualifications, special qualifications, property owner and residents, all there's slots open in every slot. Design guidelines, because of the lateness of this meeting, I am going to just provide no update. Minor reviews, nothing has been scheduled. Michael, do you expect any to come forward?
Yes, I have about 6 or 7 minor reviews in America.
Oh,
yeah, and on that one, the PRS members usually like those minor reviews to be done early in the morning. I know that, John, you are available from 11 o'clock. Is there a way?
I can do 10. I can't do 9.
No. Let me finish. Is there a way we can get another board member to do minor reviews at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? Because I also have to accommodate members of PRS who are volunteering to do this thing. 11 o'clock is usually too late for them. So if I can have a member who will be able to help us with these reviews, 8 o'clock, I can schedule maybe 4 or 5 reviews for 1 hour slot between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. Is there any volunteer that can do that instead of John?
I am unable to do that.
Okay, I will contact you. Thank you.
No, I said I am unable to do that.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said you were able to do that. Sorry.
No, I am not able.
Michael, if we just have to slam some stuff, can you compromise at 9 o'clock?
John, it's not me. It's the PRS members. I'll need to find out from them where they can do 9 o'clock. They typically, Ricky, who has been helping us with Andrew, they typically like to do 8 o'clock and get it out of the way. I'll talk to them. If they can do 9 o'clock and you are available at 9 o'clock, yeah, we can do that.
All right. You might
That
ask.
is better than 11 o'clock.
You can also ask Joel again because he was pretty good and he's often available.
Okay, so you say if we do 9 o'clock, it will be good for you, right?
If we just slam 4 of them, I will make a special effort to not go to bed that night, so I'm available on site at 9 o'clock.
Okay. No, these reviews will be Zoom. They're not on site.
Okay. I'll do my best, Michael.
Yeah, and then I will try if I have Joey to help me. Joey likes to do on site, and I know you'll be available like in the afternoon. I can do someone on site in the afternoon with you and Joey in the afternoon.
Let's look at a list of what we've got and we'll try to figure out who could do it when.
Okay.
That'll work. And we won't specify them in the minutes because they're too complicated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, called the board. Anything, Helen? Let's see, tomorrow night at Safford School is the second of 3 presentations that TEP is looking for feedback from the neighborhoods of how they can bypass the city because they now have to run their line through 3 gateways. And they're hoping the Arizona Corporation Commission and the courts will overrule the city of Tucson. So there's a presentation from 6:30 to 8 at Safford if anyone's interested. I don't know of any other meetings. Ellen, have they rescheduled any of the Plan Tucson public meetings yet?
Situation with Plan Tucson is that the working group, the Plan Tucson working group from the commission met with members of the city staff, and it was a very, very good meeting. And the agreement at the end of that meeting, they're in the process of coming up with their next draft. And when they do so, the working group will be meeting with them again. So I think it's a really good relationship between the commission and the city, and very positive.
Would you keep us posted if there are meetings we should be attending?
I will
If they
try
get
to make sure that if there is a meeting, it will be a public meeting, and I will make sure everyone knows about it.
Okay, anybody else?
But by the time we meet next month, we're gonna have a new president.
Oh my God.
Don't count on it. You know it's going to be a cluster whatever. We'll be lucky if we know in January. Anyway, all right. Staff updates, future agenda items. Anything else, Maria, Michael?
No, I don't have any updates right now. I just thought about the minor review that is coming up. And then you don't need to change your date for the meeting, so that's fine. So
Okay. So as I said, we'll have a couple candidates. You'll keep us posted, but possibly the I don't have a calendar in front of me. Does anybody, what day are you trying to look? And is there another day of the week we could do a Zoom meeting that you all would be available if we need to squeeze something in before the 14th? I know.
I'm always available.
Thank you, Maurice. I know.
I'm not available until after the 16th, with a bunch of commitments that I've got between now and then.
Okay. All right. The 16th of November?
Yeah, of October.
Of October. Okay. Well, that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, okay, then I'm sorry. It's the 23rd then. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
that's right. I was looking at the wrong week. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not available from the 23rd through the 2nd of November.
And if it matters, I am out of town at the National Trust Conference from 27th of October through the 30th.
You may have to do a Google poll, Maria, to see when we can schedule a special meeting for the park. And just so that we can ensure a quorum. It's sounding like the maybe the first week, end of the first week of November, like a Thursday might be a better day to do this when everybody's back in town.
Yeah, yeah, that would be better because then they would have gone to external landscape subcommittee.
Okay.
Then
So tentatively keep it in your minds, a different day, possibly not a Tuesday, end of the first week of November.
Okay,
Try to keep some time and we'll try to schedule an early evening meeting.
the longer lead time I have, the better for me.
It all depends upon when they actually present plans that they're not going to modify.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else or can we adjourn?
So, John, just a question for you. You said the meeting on the 11/12, you do not need any staff participation, right?
You're welcome to join us. I think David Bachman Williams is going to buy a cake, but it's the annual meeting and there are elections. It looks like it's going to be the slate of the continuing candidates and a couple members that have identified themselves. And then we're having how to recycle and how to sort your trash, which I'm not terribly excited about. But there's probably food and other things. But it's the one thing we have to do for our ACC listing every year. And that's what, but it has the largest neighborhood turnout. So that's why we have always had this meeting, just to try to draw from that audience to get new candidates for the advisory board as well.
Okay, John, is that meeting a neighborhood association meeting or the Historic Preservation Zone Advisory Board?
The neighborhood association meeting usually starts at 6:30. The ABSAB meeting starts at 6:33 and goes to 6:37, and then it goes back to the neighborhood association meeting.
So it's a combined meeting.
They're concurrent. They have to be legally separate.
We do the agenda only for the Advisory Zone Advisory Board meeting, though.
It's a really stock thing that I can just update with this year's dates and send it to you well in advance. It's been the same copy for years and Jody developed it.
Okay, can you send that to me, please?
Sure. Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Okay, thanks. We do.
Okay, and you'll do the agenda for the other special meeting for the park.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We said it will be sometime the first week of November.
Great. Thank you all. I'm adjourning the meeting at 8:51. I know we went very long, but I think
Thank you.
I think we got our points in and maybe we'll see some favorable changes and go talk to politicians and see if we can maybe make Santa Rita have a bigger dog park.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I'm teasing. Good night, everybody.
Yep, good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.